Good morning and happy Friday. Welcome in. This is SimWorld today on a Friday, May 10th. I am Marsh, joined this Friday morning by the one, the only, Rick Bonnet Blaze. Good morning, Rick. How are you?
I'm doing bunny fine this morning. Players only live once. Hello.
All right, you and Shaggy both. Big night in SimWorld BA action. We're going to talk that. We're going to talk some activity in a big SimWorld prep night as well, and then recap all the games from our Thursday slate of SimWorld prep action. Let's start sequentially with how the BA went about it as well, where Cleveland walks into Boston, nails 13 of their 28 threes. Donovan Mitchell 5 of 7 himself. He scores 29 points. All starters finish in double figures. Karis LeVert with 21 off the bench. And lo and behold, the Boston Celtics are tied yet again through 2 games as a top seed with the Cleveland Cavaliers as the series flips to Cleveland here later this week, Rick.
I guess I figured Cleveland was going to get at least one game, but I don't like the way this is looking for Boston. This team, I feel like this is deja vu all over again. Every year, they come in as a highly anticipated favorite. And it seems like for the last 3-4 years, every year, they find a new way to let everybody down. This is becoming their apropos. And they have, quite frankly, too much money into a couple, 2 or 3 players. Well, they can't sustain this unit as is. If they don't win it this year, I can see Boston going into it. Somebody got to go. Somebody got to go. So I'm not counting them out. I'm just saying I'm alone. I'm already pressing the alarm, the panic button if I'm a Celtics fan because I don't like the way this is looking. This is looking like deja vu all over again, and we know how this has played out previous years for the Celtics.
So here's my thing with, we always talk about, it's the way it's always played out for the Celtics. Jaylen Brown is 27. Okay, Jason Tatum's 26. I think that they've been a culprit of their own success in that they just were so successful so early. I mean, if this team was doing what Oklahoma City is doing right now, where you've suddenly arrived on the scene, we'd take it a little bit differently. I mean, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is 25. We don't consider Shai in the same lens that we consider, at least we didn't up until this season, Jason Tatum. I think that is changing, obviously. That being said, I don't think the criticism is actually all that far off, and the reason is that Jason Tatum, as your number one guy, he actually played fine last night if you look at his numbers, but he didn't do anything really all that impactful that flips the game. And that's been my challenge with Jason Tatum is you have these sick highlights. He's a perfect physical specimen of what you want to be your number one forward, but yet he doesn't have the magical moment where you're just in awe of what he just did, right? Like you watch Shai and Luka and Kyrie last night, and we'll get to them, and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe he just did that. The step throughs, the spins, the pull-ups, the up and unders. It's a beautiful game, right? The same with Donovan Mitchell, pull-ups from deep, hitting incredible shots. It's a beautiful brand of basketball. I don't get that with Jason Tatum. It's kind of just rigid. It's kind of bland. It's kind of salt and pepper, okay? And that's kind of what the Boston Celtics are. They are really good. They're a really good basketball team, obviously. They won 64 games, but they always leave you wanting more. And the Eastern Conference, I still think the Celtics get out of the East primarily because I don't think the East is good enough. But I really don't see them getting past any of the 4 teams in the Western Conference because it's just constantly, like you said, you're always left wanting more. You're always left being like, well, that kind of stinks. It's kind of a buzzkill of a way to end this thing. That's just who they've been, despite the fact they've been doing it for a while and they kind of did it before they should have been doing it. At some point, you just are who you are, and eventually, if they don't break through, I think you're right. And I think it's probably Jaylen Brown because of the size of his contract. I think they're locked into Drew Holiday. They're locked into Derek White. They're locked into Jason Tatum. Jaylen Brown is kind of the same way of Jason Tatum. It's just on the lighter version.
Yeah, and you was expecting, especially early on these 2 guys' career, everybody was trying to figure out which guy was going to kind of emerge as the clear number one.
Mm-hmm.
I guess by default, that's been Jason Tatum. But to be honest, they play very similar games.
Yep.
Both of them have immense talent, pretty good size for their position, and they can score. But like you said, they're not impactful in the most crucial times of the game more often than not in playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking regular season. With this team, throw the regular season out the window. They're regular season champs. They're the James Harden of regular seasons. I'm talking about when it counts more. I'm talking about the reason why these owners pay you $50 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
They're not for the regular season, for these playoff moments. And these two guys, when it comes to the biggest moments in the playoff games, when it counts the most, they come up the shortest.
Yeah, they consistently make no bigger shortest performance than Jason Tatum shooting 36 and Jaylen Brown shooting 43% when they made the NBA Finals or the SWBA Finals in 2022. Here's kind of what I wonder though, and I just said Jaylen Brown, but as I think about it more, maybe he's not the one to move. If you look at this roster, I don't think you can picture Jaylen Brown. I think he's too good to be a number 3, right? Would you agree with that he's too good to be a number 3 player?
Yes, at least for the regular season, for sure.
Yeah, and I think, but on a playoff team, like I think if you say, hey, your second best player is Jaylen Brown, I'm okay with that, right? I mean, hey, look, you look at the Thunder. Jalen Williams is their number 2. Maybe it's Chet Holmgren, but like, okay, I'm fine with that. You look at if you put him next to Donovan Mitchell, I'd be like, yeah, that's good. Derek White, I don't think he's anything higher than a number 3. Would you agree with that?
Yes, 100%.
So if those guys are being asked to be the number 2 and the number 3, and we don't have any objection to that, maybe it's Jason Tatum. Like, if we don't believe he's not a number 1, then does it make more sense to try to find somebody else who is?
No, number 1s don't grow on trees, Marsh.
Well, so but clearly Boston is missing that. Is my point. They're clearly missing a number 1. So if the goal is to break it up, are you really going to get anything better back than what Jaylen Brown already gives you? Than what Derek White already gives you?
Yeah, but try selling to the Boston public and the fans that, hey, we're going to keep Jaylen Brown, but we're getting rid of Jason Tatum. That's not the easy sell at all. Even me saying it out loud sounds crazy.
It's not an easy sell. I said it. I did say this is a tough sell. Or I didn't say that verbatim, but I'm fully admitting this is a tough one.
Because the optics of saying that is saying Jaylen Brown fits better what we do than Jason Tatum. Or Jaylen Brown is more coveted than Jason Tatum. And we know that's not true, right? So that's a tough. I think it's going to be Brown just simply because I think they've already pinpointed Jason Tatum as the guy. He's probably like one of the faces of the league. Those guys don't really get traded unless they want to be traded, right? So I think it's Jaylen Brown by default.
Well, let's head over to the other side because that sounds like a Rick's Blazing Takes episode if I ever heard one, or a really awful Marsh pod. But let's head over to the other side of the bracket where the Dallas Mavericks get a 9-point win on the road in Oklahoma City. And the immediate reaction, I think I've said this on either this show or my own in previous weeks, where I don't really take a series serious until after 3 games. And I know that's kind of a cop-out because 3 games is nearly halfway through, but there's so much variance within one game of basketball that it can change pretty much everything. And last night, I think, is the variance. Let's go with the variance, and let's go also with the other side. The Dallas Mavericks, they win 119-110. They go 18 of 37 from deep on the road, while the Thunder at home go 10 for 30. That is really, Rick, what decided this basketball game, the efficiency that Dallas had from deep throughout this game.
Listen, this game is going 7. This series is going 7 games, and I'm with you on that point. I think the series starts, the real series starts, the make and break time starts at Game 5.
Mm-hmm. Which again, that's kind of like it's a cop out to say that, but
don't count. But I say that, and you probably said it because our anticipation as these teams are even enough matched up, or it's going to be 7 games. So I mean, going into Game 5 is either going to be an elimination game for somebody, or they're going to be looking to break the tie.
Mm-hmm.
Period. So Game 5, but these two teams are a really good matchup. It's going to be a really exciting series. And I think with these two teams, every game you're going to see something different from a statistical standpoint, from a game plan standpoint, that causes one team to win and the other team to lose. I think it's going to change from game in to game out. It's going to be a very exciting series. I'm going to lean. I like OKC's depth, but I like the experience from Dallas's core group.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's again.
It's a tough toss up.
Every time that go back to, let's rewind 2 weeks to Miami, Boston. Miami wins game 2 on the road. They hit a record number of threes, and everybody's like, "Here we go again. The Miami Heat. They're gonna do it. They're gonna upset the Celtics. It's the kryptonite of Boston." And what ends up happening? We get 3 straight wins from Boston. The games aren't even close, and the Celtics move on. But within that, the game changed because there was some massive outlier. Last night's massive outlier was PJ Washington going 7 for 11 and saving a 2 for 8 Luka Doncic night, a 3 for 12 Derrick Jones night, and a 1 for 7 Derek Lively night. Now look, Lively was really great off the bench for this group, plus a team high plus 18. And you could, when you're watching that game, you could see how he impacts with his size, which of course has been the challenge for Oklahoma City, every attack. My question is, Luka Doncic is banged up. I mean, he's walking up and down that floor even slower than he already does with a knee injury. PJ Washington needed to go nuclear for this team to get a win on the road. Can I trust, out of Dallas, PJ Washington, Derrick Jones Jr., Tim Hardaway, who went 6 of 10 and kind of hit a lot of big shots down the stretch of that game? Can I trust any of them to do that all over again if Luka have a bad night? Now, the flip side of that coin is the Mavericks survived a bad Kyrie night, which is very difficult to do. But at the same time, this is a very difficult matchup for Kyrie with lengthy defenders on the wings for Oklahoma City.
Yeah, and I think you just pointed out the X factor. It's Luka Doncic. Mm-hmm. If that injury, which seems like is bothering him, if he's not, the further away he is from 100%, it decreases the Mavericks. Obviously, I'm being Captain Obvious here. It decreases the Mavericks' chances to win, and I think that can be the deciding factor. So right now, looking at this team, look at the shape that Luka Doncic looks like he's in with his injury. You have to go advantage OKC because you're gonna need all your guys, like you said, those role players. They're good, but you can't expect for them to pull out offensive performances like 6 for 10 and things like that on a nightly basis. That's just not what they do. So either Dallas is going to come up with a really nice game plan to make Luka a decoy for most of the game until you need him most, or I don't know. But his injury cripples, no pun intended. Well, I guess pun intended, cripples Dallas's chances to get past OKC.
Well, the Thunder also need to find a way to not play Josh Giddey. He was minus 20 in 11 minutes last night. He did not look good at any point in time. He was constantly getting beat.
But the girls love him.
I'm just going to stay away from that one. So I'd expect to see a lineup change. Also, real quick, before we move to SimWorld Prep, my only last point is I'm watching that game last night, and I'm saying, man, if I'm the Minnesota Timberwolves, I am loving this. Because Absolutely. If I get past Denver with how much problems Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford caused the Thunder inside, which we all know, Lively and Gafford are just the pinnacle of elite big men in today's SWBA. If I'm Minnesota, I am licking my lips watching that game. All right, let's head to
If you're Minnesota, I'll say this last thought. If Minnesota beats Denver, Minnesota wins the championship. There's no other team.
I'm with you there.
Not even Boston on the other side. There's no other team that can. If the refs are letting Minnesota play that type of defense that they're playing, and they're just going to just let them play like that, if they can beat Denver, it gives them the championship now.
I am there on that one with you. All right, let's head over to SimWorld Prep, where last night Cascadia picked up their 4th win in a row. They beat Showtime, who's kind of been up and down all season, most recently down. But Cascadia moves now to 21-8, a huge night from Jason Holbrook, 25 points, 9 boards, 3 assists, 2 blocks. This team in Cascadia, they not only win by 8, they win by 8. We're talking about doing it without a star, with Kevon Jackson scoring just 6 points on 3 of 10 shooting. He really struggled last night, Rick. This team looks more and more legit every single time they're out there. And Coach Barry has been riding this team incredibly well since he's taken over.
First of all, let's give a warm welcome and applause for the Neo Region champs. I think statistically they've won the division. No one can catch them. So they've already wrapped their division number 1 seed and championship up for the division. Mm-hmm. So shout out to Coach Barry for that. He's unlocked. I think last night's game was more about what Coach Barry has unlocked and less about how Kevon Jackson played. This team has been, hey, Kevon Jackson needs to score 15 plus to have him a win. And now he's unlocked Jason Holbrook to see the side of Jason Holbrook I've never seen. I've never seen Jason Holbrook play so good. I didn't know he had these types of skill sets. I saw Coach Barry going 9-10 deep in his bench yesterday. Boys I hadn't even heard of all season was scoring. He has his game plan, his system. The players have completely bought into it. And they're a very scary team coming down the stretch race to 1 because not most of the time you're talking about playoff time, you're talking about tournament time. Teams contract their lineups to have their best 7, 8 players playing all the time. My man can probably go 10 deep with the system that he's running, and they're all ready to run. Cascadia looks really, really good coming down the stretch.
Yeah, this team has just size, length, and it's the argument that we've made on multiple occasions is you have to be able to avoid the 1 star, and they've got multiple dudes that can pop up. Holbrook at 15 years old, he can go nuts. Obviously, Kevon Jackson on the wing. Tyree Wells, who was really efficient last night on his way, really big last night, not necessarily efficient on his way to 14-6, but he's typically been very efficient, shooting 60% from the floor on his way to 12.5 points. Daniel Irvin, a big night, has the propensity to add in those types of productions. This is a really deep roster like you're talking about. And at the end of the day, it all stems back to Kevon Jackson. And if you can survive a 3 for 10 night against, granted, not a great Showtime team who's 3-10 and has really struggled all season to find some consistency, you have to feel really good about it. And then to your point, locked up the number 1 seed, so they're likely to play Beyond the Arch, who is 2 games behind Showtime with 3 games left for the 8 seed. They're likely to play Beyond the Arch. If they win that game, they would get potentially any one of Bay Area, Heartland, and Best Coast. And if I'm Cascadia, I'm hoping Bay Area keeps falling because I don't want to see Suno Chapa. I don't want to see Benari James. I don't want to see Rocky Mountain, who's probably not going to end up at 6. So you want to see Bay Area fall to set yourself up in the Neo region for a very beneficial matchup because Cascadia's got more dudes that can go off than Bay Area has on their roster.
I'll be honest with you. I don't think and I'm sure Coach Barry is not preaching this. It's just my opinion. I don't think anybody in that region. I think Cascadia's ran away with that region for a reason. I've seen them beat everybody up all season long. I don't think there's any team who's either deep enough or big enough as a squad to stay hang with Cascadia, or fast enough, have enough team speed to run with Cascadia. They have this interesting dynamic where they can beat you in the half court and they can beat you on the break. Most teams can't do both really well. They usually excel in one or the other. That makes this team very, very dangerous. And they have go-to guys on top of that. I don't see a way bombarding any catastrophe. They would have to drop the ball, kind of like Boston Celtics has been doing, the Raptors all blow up, to not come out of the Neo region as the champions of that region, period, in my opinion.
I don't disagree with you. No matter what that matchup looks like, it's a good crew. Let's head to the 4 games as our Thursday wrap-up. 4 games in SimWorld Prep. We'll start with Philadelphia, who picks up their 21st win of the season, staying a half game up on Cascadia for the second best mark in the league. Big night, no surprise here from Nas Hall. 18 in 19 minutes from Hall. 17 points from Jay Mills. They survive a slow, quiet, not necessarily aggressive night from Monte Parson. 4 points, 2 of 6 shooting. They win that one 68-56.
And keeping it rolling, You have AT Aliens against Lone Star. I don't know what the hell's going on with Lone Star. They got the brakes beat off of them by AT Aliens 80-56. It was completely dominating from the word jump. I think they started off to came out to like a 13-2 run. It was something really, 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 really ugly. And if you're a Lone Star, you're praying you don't see these guys any point in time when a race to one. Richard Alpine with 20 points. That might be a season high for him. And Miles Goff and Trey Bird leads the way. Arthur Lattimore, 8 points, 9 rebounds, 4 for 10. These guys, they were ATL was locking up for sure last night.
Let Richard Alpine cook. Let's head to Oceania, where they have let Jarrell Beauchamp cook. 25, 5, and 6 last night in an 81-52 beatdown of Beyond the Arch on the road, moving 2 games above 500.
There was a lot of beatdowns. And, of course, the last game of the night, we already talked about it, Cascadia 72-64 over Showtime, led by Jason Holbrook.
All right, we've got some SimWorld prep action returning to you on Saturday, 11 a.m. on ESPN2, Queen City Kings in Europe. At noon, local broadcast, Rocky Mountain Middle East, and then on national television, SimWorld TV, Heartland Zombie Stars, SimWorld South America at 1 o'clock. We'll return on Monday, talk those weekend games, talk a bunch of activity in SWBA. Appreciate you joining me, Rick. We will talk to you next week. Thanks all for joining here on SimWorld TV, the only place you can see the game, be the game.